The Disney Corporation is going full woke, and in the process, it is burning their brand. This is a company that was once charming and beautiful. It created, in a sense, illusions, but they were positive illusions. And now they have become not just boring, but they're increasingly becoming an instrument of evil, of corrupting the young. By the way, this was a charge that got Socrates fed the hemlock. And I want to talk toward the end of this segment about how to administer in a corporate sense, the hemlock to Disney. This has become a very wicked corporation. Now, I can't forget my first experiences at Disney. I was actually a teenager when I first came to America. And I sort of loved Disney. What an idea. What an American idea. And I think what I loved about Disney most was its celebration of Americana. It showed Americana in all its different guises. The messages were unfailingly amusing and positive, rooted in history. Obviously, it was a simplified history. And it was simplified about America just as it was simplified about other cultures. If you went on the It's a Small World ride, Indians were defined by turbans and Hawaiians by hula skirts. But there were plenty of Indians and Hawaiians going through this experience, and everyone thought it was great. The most important thing about Disney was it conveyed through its stories, and this is, of course, coming out of the very fairy tales that Disney built on, its movies on, its themes on, was the celebration of virtue. Disney was about good and evil. Disney was about wicked witches and beautiful princesses and noble chivalric princes. And so it affirmed our innate sense of good and evil. And it gave virtue a certain patina of loveliness. But in today's Disney, that is all gone. You may say that virtue has lost its loveliness. Now, many years ago, this was on my second or third trip to Disney, I had ordered some food. I was kind of sitting on the side. And I remember seeing a kind of a funny sight, which sort of reveals to me the other Disney, the Disney that is not put on public parade. I sort of saw Goofy go behind a building, and then he pulled over his kind of goofy outfit, revealing a kind of cynical face. He lit a cigarette and began muttering obscenities. And I was like, wow, you know, that's the real Disney. Those are the people who do this. The whole thing is a facade. You know, here's sort of obscenity chanting, cigarette smoking, you know, metrosexual, Goofy. I was like, man, if only the kids knew, they would cross the road. You know, their parents would be like, ah. So that side of Disney is now coming forward. Amazingly, Disney has actually decided to destroy its own illusion, destroy Americana. In fact, to turn Americana itself into the evil one. Americana itself is now the villain. And so that's why Disney is kind of running through all its rides, running through all its programs, essentially removing the Americana. And they're doing it in the name of this sort of global concept of diversity, except it's globally insulting to those of us who have grown up in other cultures, because this is not reflecting our culture. Indian people are very traditional. We affirm traditional values. We prefer the old Disney to the nonsense you're putting on parade now. Now, there's a recent article in the City Journal by Christopher Rufo, which talks about what Disney is doing behind the scenes. They've got these training modules for all their employees. The United States, that this document claims, has a long history of systemic racism and transphobia. White employees must, quote, work through feelings of guilt, shame, and defensiveness to understand what's beneath them and what needs to be healed. There's another module called What Can I Do About Racism? You've got to be aware of, quote, implicit biases. You've got to watch out for microaggressions. You've got to, quote, become an active anti-racist. They tell employees to, quote, reflect on America's, quote, racist infrastructure. And on it goes. 21-day racial equity and social justice challenge. They talk about the fact that participants must learn about their white privilege and fill out a white privilege checklist, including I am white, I am heterosexual, I am a man. Then we move on to white fragility. The program says, if you believe things like, quote, I'm a good person, I'm not racist. I was taught to treat everyone the same. That proves you are a racist. And at the conclusion of this 21-day challenge, you have to learn to, quote, pivot away from, quote, white dominant culture to something different. In fact, they say that themes like individualism, timeliness are, quote, white dominant values that, quote, perpetuate white supremacy. And then finally, they go on to talk about kids and how kids are not too young to talk about race, even at very young ages. They have to, quote, it tells you to decolonize your bookshelf, participate in reparations, find and join, donate to anti-white supremacy work, such as your local Black Lives Matter chapter. So you can see what's going on here. The very people who do the sketches, make the animations, this is the Disney team, is being heavily propagandized by who, by the way? By the 4 white males whose collective worth is over $1 billion who run Disney. This is a case where it is whites that are driving this bus. This is not a sort of multicultural demand that's emerging from all around the world, not at all. This is Disney propagandizing from above. Now, I think it's really important that we take in the implications of this, because what really Disney is doing is they have gone from celebrating the innocence of children to corrupting them. And that means, I realize Disney is a pervasive presence in our culture. It's really difficult to sort of dissociate from Disney. Disney dominates particularly children's entertainment with games and rides and movies and so on. So you've got to think hard about, do you want to encourage this corrupting influence in the culture? And if you do, how do you strike back at it? Well, one way is to essentially develop the habits of discipline that basically say, you know, in ways that I can, I'm not going to subsidize Disney. I'm just going to start cutting Disney out of my life. Why? Not because I'm, not because I'm against diversity, but because I'm against this kind of propaganda that, particularly when it's inflicted on kids of a very young age, corrupts the mind. So the boycott is the first step, but it's not the last step. The last step is, and the more important step, is to make your voice heard. Now, social media allows you to do this. Remember, all these companies, not just Disney, but Delta and Coke, they all have a social media presence. They have Facebook, they have websites. They also have products on Amazon. Think of all the Disney products on all the different purchasing sites. Well, here's what you can do. If you're looking for something to do, go on those sites. Go on Amazon, locate all the Disney products and review them. And by review them, I mean let Disney know what you think about Disney. And also let other people know that in subsidizing Disney products, this is what they're subsidizing. They're subsidizing the very values that will undermine what they believe and will corrupt their children. So this is a destructive company that has a destructive influence in American life, and we have to treat it as such. It's worse than a tobacco company in a sense. That's an assault on your health. That's an assault on your lungs. But it's not an assault on your mind. It's not an assault on your conscience. It's not an assault on your basic sense of right and wrong. So Disney is free to do what it wants, and we are free to do what we want. They're free to try to push their destructive messaging on us, and we're free to strike back in whatever way we can and let them know, but most importantly, let other people know what we think about this. This is a corporation that needs to be taught a lesson, and I hope we can play a small part in doing exactly that.